creating added value. It almost sounds like a joke, but what happens when you bring an architect, an expediter, I'm losing my train of thought here, but all the other interior designer and so many other people in a room. We live in a real estate, somewhat of a soft market in some part of the industries, but we have a lot of people here who are in the day-to-day trenches, and we'll try to enlighten you how to create that added value. I happen to be in the industry, and I use a lot of the people that are coming up on stage. We also have a fantastic moderator. So I'm going to ask everyone to please come up. Shifra, Shira, Mark, Zev, Jeff, Rise Architecture, fantastic leader in this space and great on social media. So please come up here so we can continue the conversation, and then I'll run into the hallway to try to attract the rest of the individuals to come in. And right after this, we will have dinner and networking in the main ballroom, and you're in for a good treat between the food and the cigars and the ice cream bars and, of course, the networking. So without any further ado, I'd like to give you to your moderator, Shira Charles, to take over the microphone.
Thank you. Okay. All right, hello everybody. First of all, in advance, thank you in the back for staying quiet so that everybody in the seats here can hear. We're going to be talking about adding value in real estate, and specifically topics of, is it working? Specifically topics on City of Yes and adding value through amenities, the right amenities, understanding your ideal market, your ideal tenants. We're going to start with brief introductions as soon as we have some mics ready. So, Shifra, do you want to kick us off? Just tell us in 2 quick sentences who you are and what you do.
My name is Shifra Mendelowitz. This is not working. Where's my mic guy? This is not working. Thank you. Hi.
Take 2.
My
from
name is
Act 2.
Shifra Mendelowitz. I'm the CEO and lead designer of Act 2 Interiors. We are an interior design company that work with developers and real estate people, doing commercial work, residential buildings, office buildings, nursing homes, healthcare facilities, and everything in between. We're doing it for 20 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for your quick intro. Jeff Ackerman, you want to give us a quick download of who you are and what you do, please?
This is feedback. Hi, my name is Jeff Ackerman. I'm the owner and director of Rise Architecture. We're a architecture firm that's 3 offices, both in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. We have active about 500 projects throughout the U.S., in 18 states. We've been around for about 20 years now, and that's basically us.
Very hard to hear you. Very hard to hear.
Mark, right? On your hat, seriously, you just told me, literally on your hat. Yes, Mark Hertz, can you please tell us, me included, who you are and what you do?
My name is Mark Hertz. I've been in the real estate world since October 31, 1984. Where were most people in 1984? Okay, don't answer. We handle...
No comment.
We're expediting, we handle violations, we handle liens, judgments, we handle lead-based testing under the name of Mark Hertz Enviro. We handle Mark Hertz Build, we do full expediting, and we do full compliance with Local Law 97, Local Law 126, Local Law 1198, yada, 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 every law the City Council passes under Mark Hertz Associates. We're 4 companies under the name of Mark Hertz Group.
Got it. Okay, thank you. And Zev Heisler, right? That's how you pronounce your name?
Perfect.
Zev Heisler. Can you tell us who you are and what you do?
My name is Zev Heisler. I'm from PDG Building Consultants. We are a full-fledged expediting firm, helping developers and architects with zoning and code questions and filing and getting approvals.
Okay, well, concise. Thank you. All right, I am Shira Charles, formerly of Charles Interior. Now, the AMP report, we have a booth outside, so please feel free to check us out. Short version of what the AMP report software is a feasibility software. So for value add investment real estate, we help you calculate your due diligence, your rent hike potential the right way, more accurately, and faster. Come check out the booth. Okay, so for today's questions, we've got a panel here of individuals who are all primed and ready to help real estate investors with their value add or new build projects, scope them out, and handle them better from A to Z. So let's start with question number 1. I'm just going to ask questions and let me know who'd like to answer. Zoning reforms like City of Yes here in New York and other regional updates nationwide are giving developers more flexibility. But are teams really ready to take advantage of that, or are we still playing by old rules?
I think people are slowly but surely incorporating the City of Yes. It's zoning, the former commissioner used to say, Lahavdil, that zoning is Talmudic, which means that you could translate it and one person could interpret something one way and someone could interpret something another way. And just a matter of how we interpret it, how if the building department agrees to us. There's a lot that we find as we keep on diving in and rereading it. So we have incorporated a lot, but there's a lot more to be learned.
Do you find that the ability to interpret it in different ways creates more opportunity or
Definitely.
more red tape and issues, or both?
Both.
Okay, that's fair enough. All right, anybody else have comments on that?
I think we're finding that people are trying to add additional units, such as basement units or garages,
ADA.
ADA units, which is the beginnings of people dipping their pinky toe into the City of Yes, which is relatively new.
Yeah.
I mean, we see now on multiple projects that we're working on, the City of Yes is being extremely implemented on many of our projects. For instance, we have a project in Crown Heights now where we initially designed it as 7 stories. The City of Yes actually allowing us to go to 15 stories, and we're actually redesigning the building now for a 15-story building. The same thing we're doing now in the Bronx. We had a 7-story building initially approved. We actually now went to 18 stories on that building, added in about 100 more units into the building itself. So the City of Yes is being implemented heavily on certain things. There are certain elements within the City of Yes which are detrimental, which comes down to the 60% AMI issues, which are coming down from a profitability perspective within a development, which is a little bit more difficult. But from a zoning and code perspective, it's a massive change, and it's doing a massive change within the industry.
So this is not something that I do a lot, but just reading about the new codes and what they mean, I was very excited about it because it offers a lot of opportunities, especially for smaller developers, to add a lot of space that until now was underutilized or were not able to use it at all. But then I also heard that neighborhoods, especially some of Brooklyn neighborhoods, which one of them I live in, like Midwood, Marine Park, Borough Park, you'll be able to build high-rise also. So then I got a little bit of a case of, not in my backyard kind of. So while it's very exciting for all of us as far as work, I'm sure that there are many people who are worried about it, what it means to their neighborhood, especially underbuilt neighborhoods where you have mostly 1- and 2-family homes. Am I right, Zev?
Yep.
Should I be worried?
No.
Yep.
No, why not?
Because most of the City of Yes zoning changes on the lower zones didn't give that big of a change. For instance, the R2 zone got 0.6 versus 0.5 what it was before. The Borough Park got a little bit of a bump, but the majority of the zones that you're referring to, that you're used to, the zoning hasn't changed that much for that. When you get to the bigger zones, there was some big changes. And most of the zoning is more for a low-income perspective, was the biggest change in the City of Yes versus these nitty-gritty minor changes within the actual uses.
So I shouldn't worry about Midwood. I'm
No,
okay.
the one positive thing that you did get from the zoning change is that in your neighborhood, where you had to go for a BSA approval, they changed that whole thing that you no longer need a BSA approval. So that saves clients a substantial amount of money and a lot of time, because whatever was granted from a BSA approval is now permitted as of right,
Right.
So
which is basically an FAR of 1.
a quick follow-up question to that. across the country, not just in New York, we're seeing more tension between faster policy shifts, slower internal workflows, especially at DOBs. What trends are you seeing and how these agencies are impacting project timelines and approval expectations?
I can go through. I mean, we work all over the country. I can tell you, everybody says you have a hard time working in New York City. I find working within New York City is actually much easier than some of these smaller municipalities because they have a set of rules that we can follow. Like we do work in Chicago. It's a very large city. They have a set of rules we can follow. We go to Florida, like we're doing work in the middle of Florida. There's 4 people who roll the entire county. They wake up sick. They're closed for 3 weeks, and there's no one to talk to. So and then not just that, Dave's like, well, we never built a building like this. We didn't even know how to deal with it. Well, we'll have to ask questions to engineers, and then we'll learn about it. 4 weeks later, they're still asking questions. You miss timelines. I think we have a project that dragged on for over 2.5 years extra just because, why not, basically.
Wow.
So while I respect what Jeff is saying, from a violations end,
Yeah.
and from a waiver of civil penalties, of boiler penalties, because we're required to do boiler inspections every year, or from the end of getting decisions after we do hearings on ECB violations, things do move slower, and because everyone is, for one, most things have gone remote post-corona, and when you need to speak to an individual, because there's some certain intricacies, not to do anything illegal or questionable, but you have to understand different laws as far as waivers or decisions or things of that sort, or how to get an inspection to take off a violation, to take off a stop work order, an unsafe building notice, a vacate order. Things do move slower, and because there's no relationship, and I don't mean relationship in the negative, I mean relationship in you can come into the building department with your ducks in a row, and they know that you have done that for years, and therefore they will help you move things along quicker because someone needs to refinance, someone needs to get their C of O, someone needs to sell their building, someone needs to get on a legal real estate tax abatement program or a rent increase. So there are certain benefits, and I respect what Jeff is saying as far as approvals and things of that sort, but there are certain downsides.
Yeah, just to add to what Jeff said about Florida, it also depends who you ask, because you sometimes get approval for one thing, and then they come for inspection and say, no, that. We just had a situation like that where we tried to divide one pool into 2. So in order to save space, we just built a wall in between, like with a waterfall and all that, between the 2 pools. They came, I don't know, I wasn't there, but they said, no, you have to have 4 feet on all 4 sides of the pool. I have to start all over again. Now we are redesigning that pool area. So it's not only the delays, but sometimes you get conflicting approvals or disapprovals.
Interesting.
That with everything, you have now you hear me. You have every person looks at something and interprets it a different way, and they come up with their own rules and regulations. Some people are obstructionists, and other people are out to help you and for development. So it's just a matter of who's reviewing and who's in charge.
I guess that's what you meant, that's Talmudic law.
Yeah.
Sounds like Scott Pavan's statement.
It's not Scott, it's Patricia Lancaster.
Okay, for our next question, I'm actually going to do something a little outside the box, and we're first going to ask the audience, and then we're going to take answers from our
You may get the
professionals here.
audience's attention, maybe they'll stop talking as much.
You know what? I doubt it, but let's find out. This is like what we do. I used to do early childhood education, actually. And when we wanted to know whether or not the students were paying attention, we would just quietly say, put your finger up in the air. And if they were paying attention, they'd put their finger up in the air. We got a couple. A few. There we go. Okay. So for the audience, I would like to know, do you think...
Can I interrupt you a second?
Sure.
For the audience, if the audience is listening, they may hear, this may get interesting. I'm sorry, forgive me.
Please don't apologize. Okay, here's the question. Do you think project teams are aligned enough during the pre-design phase, or is misalignment between design, compliance, and construction still the main reason projects stall or miss budget? If you think that they are aligned, you can raise your hand now. If you think that they are still the reason that they miss budgets or timelines, you can raise one finger. Raise your hand if you think they're aligned. Raise one finger if you think it's still the reason they miss budgets. Still the reason they miss budgets. So if we're dealing, as the audience says clearly, with a misalignment between the different contributors in the teams running these projects, such as designers, compliance, architects, construction, what can we do to bridge that gap?
I'm a big believer in having very early meetings with all the team members in the project, both from interior designers, construction management, the contractors, compliance. If everybody's in the room at the front end, even our mechanical engineers, structural engineers, we find that we get a lot more information. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be, where they're supposed to stand. We just started now a project with a specific interior designer, and we sat down before, and we said, okay, we need from you what you're doing, so we know where we are going to go to, and therefore we can bring the same page, or else we'll overstep our bounds, they'll overstep their bounds, and a lot of that time, that's where the confusion happens. So if it's very clear delineating the lines at the front end, it makes the project run much smoother.
It's my pet peeve. I could talk about this for the rest of I don't want to hijack the whole thing, but the misalignment between architecture, design, construction, compliance, engineers, it's criminal. I have no better words to this. It causes so much delay, and it's so simple to resolve. I just don't understand why it doesn't work like that.
Well, what
from
would the
very
resolution
beginning.
be?
What is the solution? Just team up together from the very beginning.
Okay, so this is a great little
And
segue
then-
into an offshoot.
and then
Who's
and
responsible? Who is responsible for
developer-
whether or not all these pros,
The developers.
the developers and the investors, the
Project
owners?
manager or a developer.
Right.
And keep in mind that make sure all your filings are done so you don't get stop work orders,
Right.
so you don't get delays in the project, so you don't get ECB violations, and you don't have to pay penalties where you go over budget. And I always tell people, factor in penalties. There's going to, in New York City at least, it's going to happen. And stop work orders are going to happen. And if you factor some of these things in and you meet with everyone in advance and make sure the compliance, which I think is what Schiffer is saying, and you factor, we're all saying, if you factor all these things in advance, then, and you budget for them, better is to come out under budget than to come out over budget.
Correct.
I think the one thing also that everyone has to remember is all these trades, that they're all on the same team. Not everyone, we're not fighting each other, we're on the same team. And a lot of people, a lot of times you're telling someone they can't do X, Y, and Z, instead of realizing you're on the same team, they get defensive, which is all causes a lot of that miscommunication.
Schiffer, you have more to say? I'm seeing.
I'm sorry that I take your muscle away. I
People
apologize.
need to communicate. People need to get along. It's not a competition about who is better and who is wrong and who is right. Just people need to understand that we all have a common goal. It's not I'm showing off what I know or you're showing off what you know. It's like we are wheels in the same vehicle and we all want to get there together. So, and it's so simple that it should work that way. A weekly meeting that everybody is on the call. Even if you don't think that your particular area will be discussed during that time, you'll be surprised how much you pick up during these construction meetings on a weekly basis. There's always something that you can learn from somebody else. Like I would listen to the engineer or to and all of a sudden they're dropping the ceiling in a very strategic area because they need it for air conditioning ducts, right? So if I'm sitting on that meeting, even though it had nothing to do with me, I would say, how about if we move it around this way, make it wider so that, or shorter, so that you don't interfere with a focal wall that we put all of our effort into that particular area. So I think communication is just key, and it has to happen from the very get-go, from the very beginning. From the day the project starts, everybody has to be on board.
I want to make one more point on this.
Yeah.
We're all talking about at the preliminary parts of the project. There's a big chunk of this that happens during construction where we start going into VE and elements to start pulling pieces out. You may want to decide, well, we're going to do 3 windows, now we'll go down to 2 windows. Things happen in construction, and if people are not paying attention to what's happening because they went on to the next project and everybody specific on the design teams are like, okay, now we're at our next project. They're in construction, we'll think about that later. A lot of things happen on that table, specifically in construction where things get messy often. So they have to really be paying attention to the overall project. We just had a client today, the buildings, I think, built, the top 2 floors are finished. He decides he wants to put a commercial kitchen on the first floor, which means I need to do a vertical duct through the second and third floor, which are finished. He's like, yeah, what's the big deal? Let's put it in there. It's a very nice, cute idea, but it's actual construction. It changes the second and third floor, which is finished already at this point. And people don't even realize how their decisions affect all these pieces. And if all the people are paying attention to what's happening, they'll realize how it affects everything down the line that they're making those changes and hopefully make better decisions along the way.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that back when I was doing interior design on these projects, the thing that led me to create the AMP report was watching how much was not done beforehand. The excitement on a new project or a potential investment is there, but there's not a lot of proper planning, not with estimating the finances, deciding what value add should be done there, and certainly not with putting together the team. And then what often happens is friction between these relationships, which affects the project, because you have, let's say, the designer that was hired before the architect, and a scope of work was done, and then later on, the client realized you need an architect to do what you want to do, so they bring in the architect, and now the architect has to redirect certain things that the designer does, and you have that all the way around. Same thing with construction. So from the perspective of the people working on these projects to the investors, always consult with your prospective vendors, and there are so many people who work together synergetically and will have the same objectives. It's so much easier when we can get to the table at the same time, work on the same objectives. So I think that is a key point in the process and very well commented on and explained. The next question we're going to go to. When you're brought into a project as an architect, interior designer, project manager, what do you wish had been resolved before you arrived? And where do you usually find the disconnect start? So this is similar to the previous question, but also very different. So what do you wish would have been resolved before you arrived?
I wish that the developer actually came up with some decisions earlier where they're not making it up at the table.
As they build.
Which happens way too often. They'll say, well, I'm thinking about doing this, or I'm thinking about doing this, or... Now, yes, there is some brainstorming that has to happen at the front end, but they should at least have some type of vision what they're trying to accomplish. I would even say, even if it's a money decision, we want to make the most money of the project. Okay, that's a decision to make. They'll come in, I have a developer now, we're doing a project for him. I think he's changed the project 16 times. I think he's at a redesign fee of over 4 times of the project. And he hasn't broken ground yet. Wow. So I could just imagine what's going to happen when he does break ground. So there has to be some type of thought process you're coming into. Whether it's, like for instance, in his particular case, he says, I want to have 3 units per floor, then I want to have 4 units per floor. He's changed it multiple times, and now we're back in the design table again.
So I actually want to cut in there really quickly, not to speak too much about the AMP report, but the reason that I started creating this software was because so often investors are taking over properties and doing things based on what they did back in Tennessee 3 years ago, not understanding the current tenants, the ideal tenants, the objective there, and the way to get to their ROI and their rent hike. And to your point exactly, when they don't know what they're doing and they're making their own decisions without the right perspective and data, most specifically, you're going to end up with redesigns running in circles and driving everybody on this panel crazy and costing way more than it should and spending capital in areas that are not going to get your rent hike or are not going to get the interest of your ideal tenants at all. So I completely agree with you.
So I want to add on to what you're saying. A lot of redesign on our end happened because developers or builders don't know their budget. When we ask them, what is your budget for amenities so that we could spread it properly so we don't overspend in one area and then run short in another area, just do whatever you think. And then it gets redone. So knowing your budget is crucial. So, and
That's what we
Shira
do.
has
That's the
something
AMP report.
fantastic, so use her software
Could
because
use the
that'll help.
slogan. I wrote an article years ago. The title of the article was, "It's not your grandfather's city."
It's not your what?
Your grandfather's city. It's not your
Right.
grandfather's city. As Schiff was saying, as Jeff was saying, as you're saying, as I'm sure Zev is going to say, things have changed. You have to be prepared.
They change every day.
They change every day. As we know from the Torah, Ezel Chacham Aroas Anolad. Who's a wise person? Someone that looks for the future and looks to the future. Because it makes a difference. It will make a difference in your bottom line. It will make a difference, correct me if I'm wrong, please, correct me. It will make a difference in your bottom line. It will make a difference in the completion of your project. It will make a difference in your earning money from the project, whether it be selling it, renting it, or whatever the case may be. And that's what
Also
you're
knowing
building.
your audience. Whom are you building for?
Your target
Who is
audience.
your target audience?
Your ideal
Is it a
tenant
younger-
profile.
Is it a younger generation, older generation, from community, not from community? You just need to know who you're building for.
The pre-planning aspect of a project is so important because the most expensive part of a project is the end of the project, because at that point you have most of the money out of the bank and you're paying interest on insane numbers. We have a client now who's stuck because of regulations and he's basically for sign-off. It's costing him $250,000 a week just to hold the project, because that's where they're up to. The projects get much more expensive at the back end. And people think that at the back end, they'll start making decisions on finishes and stuff like that, and that's where things don't get finished, and that's where really you could lose a project very quickly.
Yep. Okay. Another great segue. Which amenities are actually worth the investment, and which upgrades turn into cost traps, and why?
Can I go first?
Absolutely.
Okay, so amenities we know are very important for the sellability of any project. And today people are really spoiled. Whenever you think that you saw all the amenities, there is something new and there is something that's more important, or there is something that's a must have. So what we try to do is like divide them into the least expensive amenities that you could put in, medium, and then some high-end, which are cost traps that maybe you could do without. So today, in every building, especially when they're young people, you need a bike room. People don't think about it. It's a small room. You paint it exciting colors, and you got a bike room. A packaging room. You could walk into the most beautiful lobbies, and they are littered literally with boxes and boxes that have no place to go. Place looks horrible. A large, organized packaging room is a must today. A pet spa. Something so small and so inexpensive attracts a certain crowd that have pets. And if they don't have to bathe that dog in their bathtub, you got a tenant or you got a buyer. So these are the little things that really add a lot. And then you have the must-haves. So in my first thing is, how does the entrance look? The entrance has to look inviting. It has to be well lit. The building has to be well lit from the outside so that when somebody drives by, it catches their attention. So lighting, a beautiful entranceway, and a lobby or a lounge. And it doesn't have to be huge because people don't sit in lounges anymore. But what they do use a lot more is co-working spaces, especially in the city where apartments are small and people work from home. The most used amenity when I go back to buildings that we design is the co-working space. And sometimes if you have to give up some lobby or lounge space, definitely do that.
Yeah.
Rooftops, great amenity. Everything that doesn't happen in the apartment, that the apartment is too small to handle, like a party, a cookout, a barbecue, evening party, drinks with friends, all happens on the roof. And then you have some amenities that, and a gym. If it's a large gym or a small gym, you gotta have a gym.
Yeah.
The one amenity that is like a cost trap is a swimming pool. Unless you have a real luxury building and a lot of space, pools are costly. They are costly to operate. Your insurance becomes excessive. So a pool is one thing that I would give up if budget would not allow.
So it's interesting, before coming into this, and for also just general research I wanted to do, I conducted a quick survey of tenants, asking them pretty much which amenities would you pay more for, and which ones would you absolutely not pay more for. But the first two qualifying questions I asked them were, number one, do you think that your property manager, the owner of the building, knows what you want, knows what you like and need? And they answered, about 87% of them, yes, they know. But wait, the next thing I asked was, do you think that the property managers or the owners of your building care what you think and want? And 85% of them said no. So here we are, you have your market that is saying, you know what I want, and you don't care. And then they went on to list the amenities that they care more about and what they would pay more for, and it was very, very interesting. The top amenity, the top value add that they would pay more for, see if you can guess what it was. And just to be clear, and I preach this all the time, adding value to a multifamily space is not always something physical. It's not always a room. What do you think it was? Security. The top thing that they would pay more for was security. So when I talk about how to, focus on the ROI and the end user profile, understanding your end user and what they want, and I say, you can get stuck with the comps. Everybody in this conference right now, it's like the trending word, comps. It's important, but understanding and addressing the needs, wants, and lifestyle interests of your ideal tenants is way more important. You can literally add extra security measures, whether it's different front door access, security cameras, concierge, which acts as kind of a security buffer, for a fraction, lighting in areas by parking. I literally have that. My 18-year-old daughter just moved into her own apartment and doesn't want to park in her parking space because she has to walk around the building at night and it's not lit well enough. You can add something as small as that, spend a fraction of the price, and you can advertise that as an amenity. The next thing that they would pay more for was the gym. So everybody's looking to spend, the other place down the block had a pool, our place back in Tennessee had a pool, and we did well there. You're not focusing on the right things. They're telling you they want the gym. Add more gym features. My gym doesn't have all the equipment that I want. You're talking about max a couple $1,000s to upgrade just the equipment, give it a quick facelift, and you have something that is way more marketable, and your tenants say, oh, you heard me. You know what I want. If you're not getting into the psychology of their lifestyle needs, and by the way, that's not who they are now. That's who they want to be and who they want to be seen as. If you're thinking about who your tenants want to be as human beings, and you're designing spaces that reflect that part of their ego, then you're going to target them, then you're going to nab them, and then you're going to raise your rents. Doesn't matter if you have the comps from the building down the block. Nobody cares.
True.
So which ones go into cost traps? We said pools.
Pools are
What
going to
else?
cost more.
Yeah. What else is a trap? From an architectural standpoint, what else is a trap?
Very, 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 very large lobbies. Some
Right.
people make these massive lobbies thinking it's going to
Yes.
be like we just do now, a lobby. They're insisting we put a library in it. No one's sitting at
Nobody's
this library.
reading. They do it on the screen.
But they think it's going to sell the building, and they can't convince them out of it. I've tried more than once. But
Maybe
that's
it's
what
for
they
the
want.
wrong tenants, the wrong community,
Yeah.
wrong target.
But their rooftop looks really nice. The rooftop will sell the building very nicely.
Nice.
You know what else is very nice these days, and I have Jeff over here to thank for? A podcast room. He suggested
That
to
was
do
on
it
my
in a
that was on my
building.
questionnaire, by the way. A podcast
Was-
room.
Do it in every
was
building now.
suggesting to do
Love
it in
it.
his building. It's a little thing, it's a little insulated room. And today, especially if you have young tenants, you are
100%.
nobody if you don't have a podcast. So now you have a recording room, which is great.
And they can be used for other things, not just podcasts, but I happen to be a content creator, happen to teach people how to become interior designers. If my building had that, I would live in that space
Oh yeah? Okay.
instead of my living
We
room.
have one.
Okay,
There is
perfect.
one coming up.
Sounds good. If you could change one part of the standard investor's value add planning process before money is spent, what would make the biggest difference in long-term project success?
Location?
What do you mean? Like changing the property they're working on?
No, where it is. If they consult with this entire team
Okay.
before
talking
they
about
buy
new
the
build?
property. New build.
New
yeah.
build, okay.
New build, right.
All right.
I can give an actual story to that. We had a tenant, a client that came to us to build a building, I think it was in Connecticut area, and we looked at the property. I said, it's a very bad idea to build there. So he says, but there's buildings, and he shows me comps, like you mentioned before, and there is comps for very high rental there. I think the rents were assumed of over $3,500 a rent. I said, you realize that there's a highway smack in the middle there on that side of the highway, and you're on that side of the highway, maybe 3 blocks away, but if you even looked at Google Images, you'll see people in front of the building shooting up heroin and stuff of that sort.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, you're not getting $3,500 a rent on that side of the highway. It may look proper, but you're not getting it. And a lot of times they'll just look at a number, and I see this all the time, even within comps themselves. They'll look at the rental numbers and they'll say, okay, I have a rental number here. Here's my average on the bottom, and that's my bottom line. That's what I'm getting per rent. But if you actually break it down and you say, okay, per this block, this is 5 blocks this way, they're getting this. This is 5 blocks this way. If you have to break it down, real logistics into it, you'll see that the numbers are not all just an average. They have to be really looked at, really processed properly, and really thought of to understand what the value you're getting out of your asset.
Right. It's not just a math problem also. I think people get a little bit too focused on the numbers.
Yeah.
You have to do a proper market assessment, and I think location is, yeah.
So we had a
Location's the
project where
first
they
thing.
wanted to build it, and they asked to buy the property, and I told them they should tell the bank that they should pay them to take the building. And the bank's like, why? I said, there's 7 shelters on the block. No one's buying condos on the block. It's just not happening. So it's very nice that somebody bought it and started building it and lost the building, but it's not worth the money they're spending on it. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
You know, in all fairness, some people are pioneers in certain areas, and they are huge successes. We have a project we did recently outside of Crown Heights, and reminded me, you know, they told the broker not to bring in people, prospective tenants, during certain hours because that's where all the dealers were outside. Well, anyway, that building was a success from the minute we finished it. So sometimes, you know, you need to pioneer and you need Hashem's help and luck, but I would say location is really important.
As they say, I don't know if my mic is working. As they say in the real estate course, when one goes to be a broker or a salesperson, it's the 3 L's. Location, or I think it's a Greek word, situs, which means location, ultimately. And that's really what it's about. But again, there are neighbors that start gentrifying, and if someone comes in as a pioneer, as Schiffer said, start the gentrification process,
Right.
now you're not going to change that with the homeless shelters that are city-owned or state-owned, et cetera. That's for sure. But, you know, because those are not moving. But
I have a story where that also changed. There was a building on Washington Avenue. Drugs, rats were falling. This is a renovation. Literally, you couldn't walk in that place. And they did enough to bring it up and renovate it and clean up the building, literally. And it's a good one today. So
Sometimes,
You never know.
sometimes it is worth it, and you have location on both sides. You have location that makes it a terrible idea, and location that makes it that there's still demand. For example, the building that we were living in, it was close enough to the community and there was enough of a demand that it filled up immediately. And at the same time, it's on the edge of the community in an area where there are drugs. We've had stabbings on the property, drug dealing in our driveway, and yet it is one of the most competitive rent opportunities in the area, and they are very much taking advantage of it. So you can have it both ways. Anybody have any last comments before we wrap up, or anybody in the audience have any questions for any of the panelists? Nope? Yes? Mark?
I always have comments to make.
Okay. We'll welcome one.
It's not, like I said, it's not your grandfather's city. You have to be on top of things, whether it be developing a project, whether it be in the planning stage, whether it be maintaining your building or managing your building. Management is not what it was years ago. Ownership is not what it was years ago. And it's a different world than with programs like yours and other programs that there are out there, other computer programs that are out there, it makes your life easier, but one has to really use the data,
Yes.
hold the data, and
The
work
right
with the
data.
And I would just sum it up is assemble the right team
Yes. At the right time.
at the right time and have everybody on board together throughout the project from
Yes.
beginning to end. That's really a key to a successful project.
Agreed. All right. Thank you, everybody. It was a pleasure
Thank
doing the
you.
panel with you.
Likewise.
And don't forget to stop by the AMP report on your way out.